All right, all right, all right. And here we are, my friends, for the Pwncast. The Pwncast episode 3, actually, with my good friend LucyWrambles. It was kind of an interesting thing. One night hanging out on stream, and it was just like, hey, Lucy, want you to be the next guest on the Pwncast, and she graciously accepted. I think we were probably taking shots on Whiskey Saturday there, but it's been a heavily requested person that I asked to be on the show either way, so it works out great. Lucy has been streaming on Twitch. She's been doing some awesome role play, both on Twitch and then obviously off Twitch. She's been a really key member of the role playing community, and the last episode with Sir, I just really wanted to delve deeper into it and speak to another awesome role player. And so, but as always, I don't want to ramble on about Lucy Rambles. That's great. I'll let her do some talking. So, Lucy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Lucy, I guess. I've been playing Ultima Online for ages and ages and ages, and it just kind of I don't know. I'm a huge nerd. I like goth music, like 80s goth. I'm not really a metalhead. Lots of people kind of cross those.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I don't know.
I think we're all a bunch of nerds if we're playing Ultima,
Oh
right?
yeah,
It's just been. I remember back then it was always like when Ultima was first coming out, it was always like such a secret. You know what I mean? Like you didn't really tell people that you played MMOs, and or maybe you did, right? But it wasn't as well accepted, I guess you could say. But
well, they
I
were
also
new, right? Like
yeah,
Ultima was very much the first really big one. I mean, you had the Realm before that, but
yeah.
Ultima kind of it started the whole thing. And at the time, it was huge. I mean,
Mhm.
we look back now and they had like 3,000, 4,000 people playing at a time or something on like a server, and like that's nothing compared to like WoW or something silly like that. But at the time, that was massive.
Right,
So
right. It's really wild to think how much MMOs have came and how far they've came. Just like you said, World of Warcraft. I mean, they've got like people, celebrities doing commercials for them on a regular basis, and that's just it's wild to think that it's a part of pop culture. I mean, shoot, you think about the South Park episode. You know what I mean? Like
hmm
and stuff like
totally.
that. But back on UO, like, how long actually have you been playing UO? And Outlands as well.
So UO, I got it started in UO because my parents got the open beta CD. We live in Canada, so they got the open beta CD late. It was held up in customs, and we got 1 week of open beta before the game went live.
Wow.
So that's when I started, and I played almost straight through. Gosh, I don't even remember like when I stopped. I think it was sometime before ninjas, but after everything else. I don't
So
know.
that was like Samurai Empire was when the ninjas came out, right?
Yeah, so I think I
Yeah.
I stopped before Samurai Empires. I do remember, UO Third Dawn
Uh-huh.
and, like, that horrible, horrible 3D client that came out a couple
God.
times.
I tried to play
Um,
that so much. I just couldn't do it.
yeah. Yeah, I on the last time that I played real real UO, um, I went for, Lord British's, he did like a 25th anniversary thing or something. Um, so I made a new account and logged in, and I used the enhanced client for that because it was there or whatever.
Mhm.
But man, it felt weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny to think about the 3D client that I mean, it came and then it went, and I think it just wasn't well received at all from anybody. Because I don't think you can even log into it now. I know there's two different the enhanced client that you talked about, and you can still do the current graphic or the old graphics. I say current because on Outlands that's what we play, and every other server is what everybody plays pretty much.
Mhm.
But it's just wild about that. So you said that you and your family actually played in the beta and throughout that.
Yeah, so when we got into the beta, I was like, gosh, I was probably like 7 or 8 years old or something.
Mhm.
My parents were the ones that, well, my stepdad was the one that was most excited for it. He had played some of the single player Ultima games and stuff, and I remember like sitting on the floor in the office and watching him playing computer games like Moraf's World and like BBS games. My parents actually met on a BBS. So
Wow.
they're huge nerds. We're a nerdy family.
Okay, so my father, who also got me into Ultima, he had a BBS. It was called the Syndicate BBS, and I don't know about you, but every time I bring up BBS to people, they just look at me like, "What?" There's very few people that I've ever met that know what a BBS is, and that is funny though that your parents actually met on a BBS. I guess that's like 1.0 online dating, like the
Yeah, yeah.
original,
Long time ago. But yeah, they got me into the Ultima games because my stepdad played the original ones, and I played the gosh. My first experience with Ultima as a whole would have been the Ultima Underworld games,
Okay. Yeah.
because I got
Remember
them
that
on a
one?
compilation CD when I was like tiny, and then I think I played Ultima 8 before. I think Ultima 8 came out before Ultima Online. Um,
Which one was
but
Pagan?
it was kind of that was 8.
That was 8. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
and
I think that was my first one, but it may have been before. But Pagan was hard, right?
oh, Pagan. Well, it got rushed out of the gate. It was one of those Electronic Arts push things out too quickly, and like they had a platforming section that on first release was almost impossible. They wound up patching it later on, but I mean, back in those days, you didn't download a patch on Steam. You had to like hunt down their website and know
Yeah.
that there was a patch and download it. And yeah, it Ultima 8 was kind of the first of the Electronic Arts messes in UO, as I like to call them, or in
Yeah.
Ultima.
But yet it's still probably one of the most popular ones. You know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah,
it
totally.
but it is also known as very big, like buggy and cruddy hard difficult. But
Well, and
yeah.
it's weird too because it was like, it was the one that took place not in Britannia, right?
Yeah.
It took place in the world of pagan, and so like the spells were different, like the incantations. You didn't have Invas Mani, you had something else in Gargish, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It was yeah, long time ago.
That's wild. And so throughout playing UO, what kind of players were you guys? Were you guys role players then? Just PVM, just trying to make it? Just PVKers? I mean, what was it?
Gosh, so my family kind of ran the gamut. When we started, I think we started on Baja, and we were just kind of figuring out the game at that time. So like you'd go out through the Britain graveyard and fight your way through that, and then run up toward whatever dungeon that was. I think that was Dastard. No,
Maybe.
Despise.
Yeah,
I don't know. The one
geographically
near Britain.
speaking, I never really could remember those maps because of recall, but for some reason Outlands I
Yeah.
can. I don't know.
Yeah, I forget the names, like, of that dungeon specifically for some reason.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I remember going up there and we used to, because everyone in the family played, and I have, like, 2 brothers, 3 brothers, a sister, my parents, blah, blah, blah. So we had an egg timer that we would set on the table, and we'd get our hour, and then it was, "Okay, it's time for you to log off so
Yeah.
that they can play." And yeah, we did everything. Like there we did farming. My mom got really hard into crafting, so she was like the family alchemist, tailor. She took care of the sheep and sheared them and all that jazz. My brother got into PvP with a guild on Napa Valley, I think it was. And this was before rune books, but every single one of the PKs had a wooden box filled with runes in a grid system, and they would call, okay, go to C3, and everyone would recall to C3. And they'd say, okay, this guy's running towards D5, so recall to D6, and then we can head him off. And it was
Imagine.
so coordinated.
Yeah, the coordination just to know C3, D5, that's very impressive,
Yeah,
especially
it
back
was
then.
cool.
Because,
Yeah, and
just the knowing and coordination back then just really didn't exist. Now, I'm sure they said it in, like, what ICQ, or I guess there might have been guild chat back then. I don't know.
I don't know what they were using for
Yeah.
voice, but I know he was on voice for a while.
Okay.
But yeah, and then I kind of fell into role play fairly quickly. So I hung out with my family on Baja Napa Valley, and then I found out that the Shadow Clan was on Catskills, and that kind of became my Ultima. I had a couple of alts through the years, but I played a Shadow Clan Orc for shit like 10, 15 years.
So what Shadow Clan?
So Shadow Clan originally started on Great Lakes, and then they split off from Great Lakes and moved to the Catskills server, and they were the Shadow Clan Orcs. They took over the U Orc fort, and they had a whole bunch of like GM support and stuff. I remember we had like a deed on the table in the Grunt Hut that was pinned down with a dagger, and it said that the Shardy clan set like what is it, surrenders the Orc fort to the Shadow Clan, and so they were, yeah, it was an Orc clan. They were actually in one of the early, I think it was the T2A strategy guide that like Prima or someone published. Shadow
Huh.
Clan was listed as a player guild in uh that player guide. So that was pretty cool.
Imagine how like awesome the guild leader felt knowing that he was in
Right.
a official strategy guide. I remember that book actually. Um, Shoot,
Yeah, we had a
man.
couple of them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, where did they have their own language and everything like they do nowadays, or I mean, how did all that work?
Yeah, so ShadowClan was a little bit different from my experience with other orc guilds throughout Ultima's history and even moving into Outlands. ShadowClan was really a sort of conglomeration of a number of different tribes. So
Mhm.
each tribe had their own sort of culture and dress and beliefs and etc. Um, and all of the tribes kind of worked together as this united clan, but every orc had a bloodline, so that was your if you were like a spear orc, you were a Kigger. If you were an axe orc, you were a Lusker. And each of the bloodlines had their own beliefs and religion and secrets and like
Wow.
mysteries. And there was like we took over some of the some of the ruins that were in the wilderness of Britannia, became the center of that bloodline's worship. And so I remember the head spear orc took my orc off to the Kigger. It was called the Igju Shrine because their virtue was Igju. And I don't even know what it translates to, but it was like it was dancing and it was like water. And we went to the shrine and we practiced this fighting like you're water, you're dancing,
Yeah, like
and
Tai
it was,
Chi.
yeah,
Orcs are
yeah,
doing
very
Tai
much.
Chi.
Yeah, Tai Chi orcs. But yeah, the Shadow Clan had their own language that was, it's very similar.
Yeah.
It's like and Agder lat smelly umi pushta durabug bagrok hua gashak durabug takaga kagas kuwa.
That's
Like
that's
it's
great that
just
you
burned
can
into my skull.
yeah. That's great that you can say that, like, vocally right now, and you probably are saying very common orc tongue, right?
That was a little more of the like we had the basic that everyone could speak, and then there was
Yeah,
some vocabulary that was a little more advanced. And my orc was kind of a religious kind of weirdo, and so he had some of the more complex
okay.
language that he used in his prayers and stuff. So most of that's what's burned in my head because I
Yeah,
studied it for, gosh, I don't know how long.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Misspent youth.
No, it's great though, right? And I mean, here you are today still playing Ultima.
Right?
I know for
Yeah.
me, like, Ultima was a really big thing of mine and my friend Beltane, like growing up through middle school and high school and even college, and obviously still today, right? And man, I don't regret a bit of it. You know what I mean? It's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
What about like free shards? When did you start delving into free shards?
Uh, gosh, so my first free shard was probably Second Age or Renaissance. Um, but I don't totally remember exactly. I know that I stuck with the official shards, and I did go back to Ultima a few times after I quit.
Yeah.
For like brief little periods, it didn't really hold me because the Shadow Clan had moved on to other games and better things, and Siege Perilous and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't really remember, but I've played a bunch of them, like Second Age, Renaissance. I remember um, Adam Ant had a server. I forget what that one
Hybrid,
was
right?
called.
I think it was hybrid.
No, before Hybrid.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then there was Ann Corp for a little while. That was like a custom map, if I remember. That might have been Adamant too. I don't remember. But yeah, I've played a bunch of them, but mostly later on in my Ultima career, as it were.
Yeah. Now, have you stuck like playing with anybody from the Shadowlands or throughout the years?
I've lost a lot of them, actually.
Yeah.
What got me into Outlands was actually a old Shadow Clan Orc, who we have a Facebook group that, so we stay roughly to get in touch
Yeah.
and stuff. And he's always trying to pull people to the newest server. I remember he's the one that pulled me onto Ancorp, and then, or it might have been a different person, but uh, so I wound up coming to Outlands with because a Shadow Clan Orc invited me to play with the orcs on Outlands, and I didn't really feel the culture of the Bloodrock orcs here. No shade. They are awesome
Yeah.
orcs, and they totally fill the role. It's just I don't know. I feel like my life as an orc was kind of it was a snapshot in time on Catskills, and it's never going to repeat.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. That's why there's so many different role playing communities, right? I mean, you've got the Urgs, you've got the Drow, the Knights, Brigands. Shoot, I'm probably missing like 17 of them.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
There's the roleplay community is amazing on Outlands
Yeah.
for sure.
And where have you been spending most of your time right lately?
So lately I've mostly been playing my knight. I've been doing a little bit of Fitzel backstabbing and stealing from people that try to steal her mobs. But mostly just playing my knight lately.
Yeah. And what got you into like playing the Knight, and what's your favorite thing about them?
So I kind of I like to say that I suffer from alcoholicism. And I have a really bad habit of rolling a bajillion alts, and they all have their own characters and their own stories and their own, like, this is what I want you to be when you grow up kind of thing. And I've never played a good character in Ultima Online. Like I had my orc, and obviously orc was orc. And then my alts were all kind of little sort of throwaway characters. But for like the Ultima single player games, or even other games like Skyrim or something, like I always play the good guy. Like
Yeah.
that's just how I like to play. Um, and I don't know, the Knights Guild just kind of felt like a good place to give it a try, playing, a virtuous character. And I think it's really fun that they're keeping on with the old, eight virtues, and visiting the shrines. And yeah, it just kind of it felt like something new to me, and that's largely why I started playing Fitzel. My goblin as a thief was because when I was a Shadow Clan Orc, I wasn't allowed to have stealing. I wasn't allowed to have magery. I was there were a lot of restrictions, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like there's a whole lot of that gameplay in Ultima that I never experienced, and playing a thief, or playing doing mage PvP, or playing a mage, or playing a knight, that's all new to me. So
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, and they do different aspects of it, just like you said. Like there's the little PvP tournaments. I shouldn't even say little, because they end up bringing quite a big crowd, right? But I
Some of
mean,
them, yeah.
they do the PvP tournaments, or the role playing PvP fights.
Mhm.
Um, I think those have really been like knowing the story, and how this battle is going to give this outcome or this outcome depending on who wins the battle, and then it just spider webs out. It's, I mean, I've said it in a video before, it's like a real life, well, I mean, not really, well, you know what I'm saying, Dungeons and Dragons campaign, that
Yeah,
the outcome's going to go whichever way. And I just think that's always been so great, especially to have so much buy-in from so many people and decently sized organizations within the game. You know, it's just
agreed. And large scale organized PvP like that is just, it's such a different experience, because you do have scenarios, right? You're fighting for a purpose, and you have a scenario. So there's an orc fort. We need to break into the orc fort. or the orcs are raiding Haven, or they're doing a couple of weeks or a few weeks ago now. It was almost like a tower defense where they were carrying kegs of poison up from the Hailstone docks to the lake next to the Prevalia graveyard and dumping poison in the lake. And we were trying to stop them before they get to the lake. And it gives another element to the PvP, right?
Yeah. Did any of them accidentally drink the poison or trip over
Probably.
it? Probably. Yeah.
They're orcs, probably, but they
Yeah.
did win that one.
So it
So
got poisoned.
yeah, that lake is currently, and I think it was Atropa actually made it like it's a poisoned lake right now, and it spawns like poison elementals and stuff all around it.
Oh,
So
wow.
we have to get around to fixing that. I think we're working on that right now.
That was something else that I thought was really cool when we did a siege on Winter Harbor when I was playing Putar my Urk, is that somebody came up on their boat and started shooting cannons at the ground, and then when it would hit the ground, we would all just like disperse, like it was our characters were forcefully thrown back like far
Mhm.
away. And I just thought that was really cool that the server has such buy-in from the GMs and or the seers as they're probably called, and things like that, just to help with the story and the lore and the realism, I guess, to call it. I just think that's awesome, and I'm sure it's on other servers, or it has been on other servers, but I just personally haven't ever experienced that. And I think
Hmm.
that Outlands really does a pretty good job of helping that community. So
Outlands has done a spectacular job of it. Atropa and Eric are like, I love you guys. You're amazing. Are you kidding? Like with the counselor work that he was doing, like they're awesome. And like we did have that back in OSI where you had the counselors that would come in and help you. Like I don't know if you saw them too much on your end, but like the Shadow Clan Orcs, we were constantly that we called them the Sky Gods, and they would come down and they would do something to
Sky
the
Gods,
world,
that's
or
great.
yeah, it was fun.
So did you have any other like RP characters back? I'm sure you did, but I mean back on like retail or back in the olden days or anything like that?
Uh,
Or was it pretty
I
much just
didn't.
your Urk?
I think I tried to start a few because, like, the Catskills roleplay community, Catskills was kind of the unofficial roleplay server. Um, and I know that I tried to start a few characters. I tried starting a Celt. They used to be kind of east of the Orc Fort. There was a little farmstead up on like a little sort of, I don't know, peninsula or something.
Mhm.
I tried to start a Celt. I tried to start a Pict. The Picts were down kind of by the Lich spawn in U.
Okay.
There's the Heart Clearing. I don't know if you remember the Heart Clearing,
Yeah,
but they were near there, and
with the
they were
fairies.
all, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they were all based around wisps, and like they were sort of a primitive animal based group, and they spoke like wisps do, with lots of Y's and X's and Z's and stuff.
Yeah.
um Tried to make one of them. So like I've tried to make other things than orcs in UO, and it never stuck.
Sure. Orcs and
Outlands and
knights.
playing my knight is kind of my Jacqui is very much my first foray away from orcish roleplay in Ultima Online.
Yeah.
But I did try. I remember I tried rolling a Mongbat back in OSI for a long time. Tried to make a Ratman. Yeah, tons of them.
That's great. And so what is Jaqui's like, story? What is Jaqui's mission or have you? Virtue, right?
Yeah, and I always mispronounce her name. I do apologize. It's supposed to be Jacqui or something like that, but she's I'm going with a little bit of a stereotypical thing. She's an orphan. Her father was killed fighting Luca the Cruel when he was doing all of his uprising stuff against Andaria. And she when she grew out of the orphanage, she went and tried to make her way in the world and found herself working at the tavern in Prevalia as a tavern wench. And one day she saw a poster saying that the Postern Gate, which is the tavern in Hailstone, needed a substitute barkeep for the night. And she went, oh, "This is my chance. I can go and I can make my father proud, and I can meet the knights, and I can be close to the knights." And she went and did her bartending thing, and then she went back a little while later, and the that when she went back, the orcs were doing their tower defense thing with the poison, and
Oh.
she ward up and flagged gray and was fighting the orcs next to the knights, and that gained the attention of Sir Owain, the Void Knight, who invited her to train with the knights. So she's pursuing knighthood and virtue and goodness knows what else. So
How did the tower defense, like, how did the towers work in that scenario?
so I guess it wasn't really tower defense, but it was like they were very much following a given path. They were
Mhm.
starting down at the Hailstone Harbor and then walking up the road and through the forest to the lake. And we had to try to stop them anywhere along there, right?
Okay.
Um, so it felt tower defensey, but you're right.
Yeah.
We didn't have towers set up.
Okay. All right. Well, it was like ambushes, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
ambushes and like walls of knights and skirmishes and
Yeah.
yeah.
I always like those just because like I'm sure there was a lot of bickering back and forth between them and just, arguments and demands, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's always. I mean, very often when you have a role play PvP event, there's the preamble, right? It's
Hmm.
setting the scene, setting the story. There's always a section where you're, oh, you stupid orcs, you evil creatures, get out of this land, and the orcs go, no,
Yeah.
no, this all
Nuka.
orc land, this all orc land, human not know, and
Yeah.
yeah, so it's always a lot of fun. I love that part's almost better than the actual PvP part,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, it's great.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. It's always the fun with the bickering back and forth. Um, and so like as far as the like community and you streaming, I mean, you've been streaming here. Have you streamed games previous to Ultima? Did you kind of start in Ultima? I remember the first time I saw you, you were playing Fitzel, and you were like, "Yeah, I've never really played a thief, so I'm learning a thief, and this is Fitzel, and Fitzel likes her shinies." And it was like a very long stream, and everybody was just enthralled by it. It was so much fun. I was like, "Wow, your first stream on Outlands is a 24-hour stream. You're wild."
Yeah, I hadn't streamed very much before that. I so my first stream was a couple of years ago. Like I do Wintering Miss every year, which runs from January 25th through the 31st, and I try to play a game from my backlog, and I
Yeah.
have a huge Steam backlog, like most of us, I'm sure. Um, and so a couple of years ago, I streamed Draken Order of the Flame, which is this old PC game. It's early 3D. Um, and I found that streaming it kind of helped me get through
Yeah.
because, yeah, I only had like one or two viewers here or there, but I'm playing a game with people. And,
Yeah.
and that's my motivation. Like, if I don't get all the way through this game, they're going to know. So I'm. It was kind of my motivation to finish the game. But
You're
yeah, other
committed at that
than
point.
yeah, committed totally. Other than Draken, yeah, Outlands was my next video game stream. So
So that was pretty recent. I mean, that was what, 2020? It was last year at some point, right? Early
yeah, yeah,
2022.
yeah. I think it was late last year. I
Okay,
started
late.
playing. I did my silly 24-hour stream. I don't even know why I decided I wanted to do a 24-hour stream. It was every now and then I get the idea that I need to stay up and play games for 24 hours so that I can pretend that I'm not as old as I am. Um, because if I can still pull the all-nighter, then I'm still good.
Yeah, yeah.
But
If
yeah,
you if you can go through all night, you're still young. That's the way I call it. Man,
yeah.
I can't stay up as late as I used to. I remember so I've done a 24-hour one time, and that's all I needed. It was just one time. And it was like I remember at the end I was just like barely alive kind of thing. And
Mhm.
some of these guys, they can do it and no problem. I'm just like, man, you are wild. Like I don't understand.
Yeah, there's one guy who streams like Star Citizen and he does like 24, 36-hour streams regularly and it's like, ugh, I cannot
Yeah.
even imagine. Me, I don't think I'll do another 24-hour stream unless it's for charity or something.
Sure.
Just doing it for the fun of it, it didn't it was too exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I was just super tired, and then it was time to go to bed, and then I was just like, okay, I can't really sleep, and I finally fell asleep, but it was actually difficult to go to sleep. I don't know. I was just exhausted for the next 2 days, right?
Mm.
Is so like as far as the the Outlands community and things like that. I mean, even outside of role playing. I mean, what's some of your takes on that versus we'll say the other free shards or retail even. I mean, I get it. That's a wide span of 20 years, but
Um, I don't know if I can really compare it to any of the player shards, just because I tend to play MMOs as single player games with people around me. Um, so while I bump into communities here and there once in a while, I don't really delve too deep. Outlands has really been my first time in a long time delving into a UO community, and it's amazing. Like I mean, you're gonna get this on every interview that you do, but I don't think that I've seen a community in Ultima Online that is so welcoming, so helpful, so excited about the game and excited to share the game with others, and like pointing people towards resources, or pointing people towards your videos or Amish's videos, or go check out the Discord, or hey, you need 5,000 gold because you want to make a thief. Here's
yeah,
5,000 gold. Go make a thief. Oh, you need your codexes, and you got Bear, like, hey, meet me in shelter. I need someone to bring me some arcane scrolls so that I can make codexes. Like, and like, even I think the first time that Fitzel was PK'd in the wilderness, um, the red resed her afterwards. Like, I
hmm
never saw that back in the day.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. It's weird. Like, I feel like, I mean, it is Ultima Online.
yeah,
So you still have the trolls, you still have people who are gonna dry loot you and res kill you and whatever. It's gonna happen. But by and large, yeah, the community seems excited about the game and excited about building the game,
yeah.
which is great.
I think it's just like what you said. Everybody just they enjoy it here. They enjoy the people they're hanging out with, and they just when you're excited about something, you just kind of exude it, and you you get excited behind it, and so you want to not only protect that, but also you want to share it, and I think that I've noticed that a lot here on Outlands, especially just like in or more than any other game. I just recently was playing Diablo, and it's so funny because people would jump into those streams and they would just be like, "Blizzard sucks, Diablo sucks, this and that," and I'm just like, "I'm having a good time, but thanks for your unsolicited opinion, man." It's just like,
Yeah.
but you don't really get that in Ultima as a whole of people like saying, "Oh, this game's there." It's more like, "Wow, this game's still going. That's awesome." You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just wild.
anytime that there's a rando that just drops in, and they drop in a stream and they say, "Oh man, I played this when I was like 10. This is amazing. I can't believe you guys are still playing this game." And we're like, "Well, yeah, and it's not still playing either. Like, the game is different. There's end game, there's aspects and cores and codexes and stuff, and like there's so much.
Yeah,
Like, Outlands is enormous."
it's huge, and it just keeps growing too, and it's so funny because there's always something new, always something new.
Mhm.
So as far as like role playing in real life, have you ever been part of like SCA or do you go to medieval fairs and get dressed up, anything like that, or is this just exclusively like an Ultima thing?
So definitely not just Ultima.
Yeah.
I've role played in a number of video games over the years, mostly MMOs. The last one that I got really big into was Secret World, which was incredible. The game is based on sort of a twisted modern setting, so they had their roleplay community on Twitter. So you're Because of course everyone has phones in the game. Why wouldn't you tweet, right?
hmm
But I've never been to a reenactment fair. I've never been to SCA, but I did do a lot of live action roleplay
Okay.
for a long time. So yeah, I used to dress up and put on elf ears, and before I had elf ears, and run through the woods and stab humans, and uh, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Wait, those aren't those are legit elf ears, like
Yeah.
modified elf ears. Lucy, that is badass. I
I'm
was
just a nerd.
no, that's great. That is cool as hell. I did not expect that. I mean, I guess it makes sense. That's just that's cool as hell. I have some elf ears, but they're not real modified elf ears. That's badass.
Hmm.
I've seen that many times, but that's cool. Hell yeah. And so the live action role play, was it the whole, like chivalry, like fighting? Was it just out, with a quest and things like that?
So I've done a few different kinds of live action role play. One of them is it's called Nordic role playing, which are very short form games that tend to take like a few hours or whatever, and it's normally um, more story focused
Mhm.
in a more compressed sort of thing. Most of what I played was called Bofferlarp, which is you run off into the woods for a weekend. You're dressed in character. You hold character for the weekend. You have plumbing supplies that are padded with foam, and you beat each other with your
Yeah,
swords. Or lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt.
yeah.
But
Root.
it's a lot more fun in real life.
Yeah.
And Yeah, so the people that are running the game would have a overarching plot for the season of the game, and then a plot that was geared for that weekend. And the players would interact with one another and NPCs, and run into monsters in the woods or whatever. So
God, I
yeah,
bet that was a lot of fun. Wait,
it's ridiculous fun. It's
yeah.
way too fun.
How did you? I mean, was it just like a friend invited you to it, and that's kind of how that came about, or?
So I kind of fell into it. I watched a documentary on a live action role play group called Darkon
Hmm.
a long time ago, and just started looking to see what was in my neighborhood. And there wasn't really anything super local, but like a couple towns away, there was a group that was meeting up. And
Yeah.
for a while, it was up to like 80 or 100 people for an event on
Wow.
a campsite, and yeah, it's fun.
That's wild. That's wild. Yeah, the SEA has like a couple different like meetups and things like that, and I've been to like the local meetups, but I haven't ever been to like an out of town one or anything like that. That apparently is really big, and it's kind of the same thing where people will stay, for a weekend or even a week, and merchant shops pop up and all kinds of wild stuff. But that's really cool. So as far as like Outlands, though, I mean, going back to that. Sorry, I got off topic there.
Not at all.
What I mean, what are some things that you'd like to see come about? I mean, this year it's still early enough. So what would you like to kind of see come about in 2023?
Oh man. So while I think that Outlands has done a lot for UO, and I love the direction they've taken with a number of things, I would love to see an inventory rework.
Yeah.
The inventory system in Ultima Online is at least 27 years old if you just look at Ultima Online, but it pulls from Ultima 7, which I mean that's even older. So it's a lot of fun. Like you have your bag, you have the icons of your things, and you're moving them around your bag. But I mean, it's no secret. I play a thief,
Yeah.
and anyone who has played a thief in Ultima Online Outlands knows that there's a lot of jank involved. You need to play with container scale, or you need to mess with object delay if you want to dig and find something fun. It's part of the reason that Fitzel steals gems, because people leave them in the root of their pack, and I don't have to dig for them, and it's fun. Um,
Ropes. Yeah, I
yeah,
get
ropes,
it.
totally. Playing with that jank, and I don't even know that it would be a good solution. Like, I don't even know that there is a good solution to the inventory system.
Yeah.
Because if we change to a grid system, everyone's going to start running with trap boxes or lock boxes because they can no longer sack things.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they could make it better, but that feels like the weak point to me. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, I could ramble on for about an hour on that topic for sure, so I
for
agree with you
sure.
100%. Kazuma had said something a long time ago about, it being he's gonna rip me a new one because 'cause I'm gonna say it wrong, but it being like a stealing check or something, and you can move objects in their items or in their bags, which would be really cool,
Mhm.
and just something to It does kind of suck. All the thief prevention, and I don't. It feels bad opening up options, changing, object delays, and then going into the options in the game to resize containers and stuff like that. And it's just like, man. So that's why I totally sympathize with you and can relate on why you steal gems is why I steal ropes or just something random just to entice the chase. Because for me, that's what makes stealing is fun. I don't care if I steal a 30,000 gold core or whatever. I just want to have fun and get them to chase me and hit my little yeehaw button and hoot and holler.
Totally. Totally,
You know,
totally. Yeah, I
that's
mean, if I were to suggest something a little lighter, I something that I really miss from Ultima Online back in the day are the Fred versus Bob wars. I don't know
mhm.
if you remember those. But everyone would make a character, and some people would be Bob, and some people would be Fred, and they'd wear different colored robes, and they'd have newbie skills, and they'd duke it out.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, that doesn't work in Outlands because you have the name protection. But I would love for them to remove name protection from Bob and Fred, and then just think of like because you could log in, you could level up to 80 in Shelter Dungeon, and then you could have this massive PvP event with Fred's versus Bob's with their 80 skills out of Shelter Dungeon. It'd be hilarious.
It would be great, and you couldn't call a target either. It couldn't be like
Yeah.
3, 2, 1 drop on Bob. Well, which Bob?
Which Bob? Oh
Yeah,
no.
that
Totally.
that's great. I like that. I like that. And then, it's for anything as far as, like, the role-playing community or I mean, I guess they kind of, we'll say, govern themselves pretty much, right?
Yeah, I'm I don't think there's anything that I'd ask from the roleplay community because they're incredible. I'll just keep playing the events as they come up and keep playing the stories. It's a blast.
Yeah, it really is. They always come up with well, it's an ever-going quest, right?
Mhm,
For sure.
mhm, and I understand that pardon me, Eric was working on a great big dungeon that was gonna have roleplay elements in it, and I'm pretty excited for that, so we'll see.
Yeah, I saw like murder holes where reds could come in but not go back out, or maybe vice versa. I can't remember. And then, of course, it's supposed to be like a group play dungeon where the monsters are going to be extremely difficult and whatnot like that. So that should be really good. I remember old Uricton Bluffs was pretty difficult until it wasn't. People get links and then things
Mm,
happen. Things get easier, but I'm hoping it's something maybe even more difficult than that. But
who
I'm sure
knows?
I'm sure there'll be a story. With the like SSE, like with the Weeping King and stuff. He did such a great job with that whole. I'm guessing it was a very long storyline from even probably holding with Undermountain and all that stuff. I'm not quite sure, but I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, the lore that they've done on Outlands is just it's spectacular. It draws from Ultima's old lore and it just builds on it, and it's so much fun to explore. It has that very much like most of Outlands, it has that new but familiar sort of feeling. Um, so it's comfortable, but it's new, and I love it.
Yeah, it's legitimately kind of like Ultima Online too. That's really the best way I can describe it. But then also, I mean, it's also its own thing, and I think it's definitely something that can be recognized as that, just because it's that and so much more. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
are there any other games that you are currently playing that you are looking forward to? Anything like that?
Um, Part of my problem is that I'll find a new game that I'm excited for, I'll play it for an hour, and then I'll go back to some form of Ultima Online, and I've done this so many times over the years, and right now, I do have I kind of feel like half of the Ultima Online streaming community has gone and started messing around in Mortal Online 2, so I'm tempted by that. It's on sale right now, and I did pick it up. I don't know if I'll actually play it, but, it's there. Um, I've been playing a little bit of Dwarf Fortress here and there, and I'm always on the lookout for my what I like to call my dream space trucker game. Um,
Space Trucker game?
yeah, like just I like games that I can immerse myself in, where I,
Okay.
I feel like I'm in the game. So if Elite Dangerous was pretty good for that, you can. I'm in a spaceship and I'm trucking goods from this place to that place, but
Okay.
Elite didn't quite hit it. So I'm still looking.
What about, did you ever play Eve? I know that was kind of a point A to B, and
I played a little bit of Eve. I always had a hard time getting into Eve because it always felt like the more hardcore UO. Um,
yeah,
and
if that's such a thing,
it's
right?
if that's a thing for
Yeah,
sure. I love the idea of Eve Online. I love the ship design. I think it's a beautiful game. It's just
yeah,
it's never really caught me.
yeah. And then there was another. It was like a space exploration game. It came out, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago. Star World, Star. I don't know.
There's a few of them.
Yeah,
There's
there's
like Elite Dangerous and No Man's
No
Sky,
Man's Sky. That
and
was it. I
there's
was
Star
way off.
Citizen that they've
Yeah,
been. I mean, if it ever actually releases,
yeah.
um, yeah, I
Well,
don't
you,
know.
well, nowadays it's like let's let's put this game in early access for 6 years, and then when it comes close to ending early access, everybody will be like, "Oh, I remember playing this game 5 years ago," and you're like, "What? It's in early access." And like, yeah, it's been in that long. Oh wow, it's way different. Well, yeah, they've been developing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, cool. Okay. As far as like, I mean, is there anything that you would like to say to, the community or just anybody who might catch this podcast?
Gosh, stay cool. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can really say anything. Like, the Outlands community is amazing. For anyone who's not already in the Outlands community, if you played Ultima Online and you're at all curious about what it might look like had it been made in 2023, come check out Outlands. It's incredible. Pwn really nailed it by saying it's UO2 without the drop kicks, if you remember that trailer. And yeah, it's every skill having something to do, having an end game beyond getting 7 times GM, having build diversity, you can make anything.
Yeah.
Outlands is incredible, and if you don't care about playing the meta and don't care about hunting in the toughest dungeon and making, 100,000 gold an hour or something, you can have a lot of fun anywhere, and they've made a beautiful, beautiful map that is tons of fun to explore even. Like, it's I
No, that's awesome. That's
yeah,
like a badass trailer for Outlands, honestly. So, um, all right. So I always like to ask everybody, like, who should be the next guest on the Pwncast?
who should be the next guest on the Pwncast? Well,
Yeah.
you've done a couple of streamers, you've done a couple of people in the roleplay community. Uh, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna fangirl for Jester any day of the week. I think Jester is an amazing streamer and an amazing resource for this community. So I'd suggest Jester if he's game, but if not, uh, I think I would love to see an interview with Owen or Luthien or some or all of those guys. Just the stuff that they've done with Outlands is amazing, and I want to know. I want to pick their brains, and I know they're not going to let me pick their brains. Maybe they'll let the Pwnecast pick their brains. So that would be
They,
cool.
I don't know if they would actually get on camera. I don't think they've ever. I mean,
Oh
they
yeah,
might. They might though.
maybe not.
It's if you're out there. But the cool thing about Jester is Jester. Me and him live in the same state, so
Mhm.
that might actually be when somebody had said Job before, and Job also lives in the same state. So somewhere within 2 hours or less of a drive, and we could make that happen in person actually, which would be pretty cool.
That could be pretty rad.
That'd be a new one, right? So.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, Lucy, I mean, you're super awesome. I really appreciate you being on the show. Where shout out your socials. Shout out your socials. I mean, where can people find you?
I don't have a whole lot right now. I'm on Twitch, obviously, at LucyWrambles. I'm on Mastodon at LucyWrambles at blackshuck.net. And I'm testing out Owncast at stream.rambles.ca. But I'll tell my Twitch stream when I actually have a stream up there. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Lucy, I really do appreciate you being on. And guys, Thanks for coming and hanging out on the Pwncast. I'll see you guys next time.
Catch y'all later.